When this crop circle was formed many years ago, it says that the aliens don't like liars. I wonder if they're talking about our government, Bill Gates, anybody.
This guy here is really important, Zecharia Sitchin. Fortunately, he's passed now, but he translated a lot of the text, Book of Enoch, etc. He's great linguistic. Now, a lot of debunkers say he was working as a Freemason and he was deliberately putting out misinformation. Unfortunately, those people that debunk him don't use logic, because anyone else can translate those texts as well. You see, that's where their idea falls down. And they did. Other people have translated those texts, and they pretty much agree with Zecharia Sitchin. So he might have been allowed to do this by the Freemasons, or he was going against them. Either way, his information seems to be correct. Now, he's wrote a series of books which you might find interesting. Now, around some point while the Anunnaki were here, the grey aliens arrived, and there's various proof of that in carvings and things, and I'll talk more in the next episode. Hi everyone, I've been asked a lot for YouTube videos, putting these on YouTube because they want to watch them in one long whole go. So I've put them on in different types. So I've got, for example, 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and so on. But I'm also putting on there 1 to 50. So if you want to sit down and watch 50 whole minutes worth, approximately, and then look for the ones once you've watched those for 51 to 100, and then 101 to 150, and so on. That's if you can stomach me that amount of time. So to find me, all you have to do is type in Our True History Parts on YouTube. Our True History Parts, fairly simple, and you'll see all these pop up. I'm adding them as I go, so you should start seeing them when you look. Thanks. Bye. So the little greys were around after the Homo sapiens were created, and I think that's because the creatures before the Cro-Magnons and Neanderthals, etc., I don't believe they had the pineal gland, but I think after we were created, we did, and that's what the souls enter, and that's what brought the greys and their masters. And I'll talk about greys later on. There's a whole different story with them, but there's proof that their kind of craft were around throughout the centuries, right up till now, obviously. So these old paintings have, as you can see, UFOs in the backgrounds. Even craft that's got people inside them. There's a really good one there with a light beam come down. Obviously, when I get to Jesus, I'll explain about lights and how they lift people up and cattle mutilations, etc. But there's another one there that's actually having an effect on this bird. So they've been around for. So while the greys were here during the time of the Anunnaki, the greys were picking up people and doing modifications to them. Genetic ones, and that lineage. So, for example, your great blah 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 grandfather may have been selected by a grey to do an experiment on, and each generation they come back and they manipulate or check on that person. So there's a long bloodline. So if you feel like you've been abducted, chances are your parent or both parents or whatever have been, and then their parents and their parents' parents. So this started way back when the Anunnaki were here, because they do experiment with people for lots of different reasons, which I'll go on to when we get to the actual greys down the line. This is a scary thought. So if the light beings are eternal, then there's this video on YouTube called Time Lapse of the Future, and basically it goes through what happens after trillions of years, trillions and trillions of years, how things bash into each other, and then black holes are formed. And basically at the end of the video, when the very last thing destroys itself because there's nothing else there, you're left with completely nothingness. And obviously if the eternal light beings are still around, that would be hell to live with nothing. There's no planets, there's nothing, just black. So I, for one, don't actually want to be a light being. Thank you very much. I'll pass on that one.
So I've got some bad news, I'm afraid. You wanted to know about the Anunnaki. Well, this is a part that I didn't want to tell you, but you want to know. So the planet Nibiru is approximately, we're not 100% sure, but it's about 4 to 10 times the size of Earth. So it's a big planet. And it's on that 3,600 year elliptical orbit. Now, if you're thinking, oh, that's really weird, no other planet does that. Yes, NASA has confirmed back in 2016 that there is another planet around another star that has 1,000-year orbit in an elliptical orbit. So yes, it's possible. So, but basically, as the planet comes back round, as you see there, it's close to Earth. Now, if that's the case, when it comes back round, and it's kind of fairly due, it could be next 50 years, 100 years, we're not sure. Some astronomers say that they can actually see it certain places at certain times of night, and they can see it because there's also a dead star that goes round with it. But if it does come in close like that, we're going to have floods, earthquakes. It's not going to be pretty. And in fact, if you Google underground cities by the governments, you'll see every government has made massive, absolutely humongous underground cities to protect themselves. So when this comes, they're going to be all right. We're not. Unless our Earth is here, in which case we're, hopefully it doesn't affect us too much. But if you go back every 3,600 years, you'll find that there is something that's happened approximately in our history that coincides with them coming round. So you have to be prepared for this,